The big green machine known as John Deere has been screwing farmers for years, and now those same farmers are finally fighting back.
It is a problem that's been plaguing America's farmers. The tractors, planters, and other gear they rely on can sometimes break down, but in many cases, they're not able or even permitted to make repairs, even on equipment they own.
When you have a machine down in a shop because of a minor issue that you can't have someone work on, it causes a lot of problems.
This receiver is, for the most part, a perfectly functioning receiver. What this does is it receives satellite signals from GPS satellites. TCM in this is broken, okay? It's not functioning. What we were told by Deere is, well, we don't support this anymore. So essentially what they did was they forced us to buy a new unit because they won't support this anymore and we can't get the repairs for it.
And technology is what we're dealing with, and this technology brings new issues to the forefront, from copyright issues to other patents and things like that.
Many of the farmers in Knoxville say if they can't fix their equipment, then the consumers suffer because they can't get food on the shelves.
John Deere's been on a roll lately, making all these farmers angry. These guys are the vast majority of their revenue. What are they doing? Seems like a really terrible business plan to anger the people that make you millions, sometimes even billions of dollars a year. Find out just how John Deere got all these farmers fighting them. First, we need to go back to the very beginning and see where all of this began.
It's hard to part with a good tractor, but for greater productivity, you need to trade up now. That means a new John Deere with record-setting fuel efficiency, power, and torque.
John Deere has a rich 200-year legacy that involves being proudly made in America all of those years. So where did all this start, you ask? Well, that's a very good question. John Deere was a real man born in Vermont in 1804. He was a blacksmith before venturing out in 1837 and opening his very first shop. This shop allowed John Deere to establish himself as the town's very first general repairman. John Deere began by manufacturing pitchforks and shovels and eventually expanded out by inventing the very first steel plow. This spark of ingenuity was just the first for John Deere. John Deere was looking to help farmers and agriculture in any way he could. So with advancements and things that he developed, he came out with the first John Deere tractor, which was actually called the John Deere Model D. They sold roughly 160,000 of these Model Ds over a 30-year time span, which in today's society doesn't really seem like a lot, but given the time frame back in the 1800s, this was unprecedented. Like, they have not heard of sales like this in the tractors ever. So in 1927, John Deere came out with his first ever John Deere harvester. He named this one the John Deere No. 2. This isn't where John Deere stopped, no. He kept innovating, kept researching, and kept building, and came up with all kinds of designs and equipment that farmers could use to make their hard jobs just a little bit easier. In 1957, John Deere came out with the first ever hay baler. This took a multi-person job and broke it down into a job that just one person could do. In that era, John Deere was lucky to be around. He actually got to watch the rise of suburban America. This is when people were moving into little neighborhoods and lawn maintenance and having pristine yards became something popular in America, and John Deere saw an opportunity in this. In 1966, John Deere released the first ever John Deere 60 lawn tractor. This became the first of many years of John Deere being the most trusted lawnmower brand. Just when you thought John Deere couldn't get any better, in 1993 he came out with what we now call the John Deere Gator. This is a little sport utility made for farmers or ranchers alike. They can load up what they need in the little bed of this, jump in the driver's seat, take it anywhere on their property. Ranches and farms are huge. They're hundreds, maybe even thousands of acres. So instead of having to walk all this stuff or use a wheelbarrow to carry it all, they just simply put it in the back, jump behind the wheel, and then they can take off and drive where they need to go. This also was the start of where many companies have come up with side-by-sides and razors. So next time you're out there tearing up trails on your side-by-side or your razor, you can thank John Deere for that. With such a rich history and being the first to innovate so many great things, what has happened to John Deere lately that have caused farmers and other consumers to just absolutely lose complete trust in that company? And why are farmers so frustrated with this long-standing American icon? Nothing hurts farmers more than a tractor being down and production having to come to a complete stop. For generations, farmers have been able to repair their own equipment, replace their own parts, until here recently, for some reason, John Deere has been trying to put a stop to that. John Deere has begun stating that they own all of the software rights to every single John Deere piece of equipment and machinery. So where does that leave the farmer standing? You pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a tractor, but yet you still don't fully own it?
This John Deere 9620R in today's market is worth over $600,000. We have our 2012 8285R in today's market is worth over 150,000 George Washingtons.
So when a tractor does break down, farmers don't have the much needed software they need to be able to repair the tractor and get it up and functioning again. But to make matters worse, even if farmers were to do a repair themselves or replace a part themselves, they lack the software to be able to reset the machine to make it function where they can get their harvesting done. It's basically like you buying a new car and everything's great at first, right? But then say a light bulb goes out. Okay, that's fine. You go to the hardware store, you pick you up a new light bulb, but you bring it back, you replace it yourself, but then you still can't use your car because you have to take your car and haul it to a dealer just to have them plug in a diagnostics machine and reset the computer that's back there. Wouldn't you be frustrated and upset with the absolute waste of your time for something as simple as changing out a light bulb? To make matters even worse for all of these farmers, even third-party companies are unable to work on any of this equipment or any of the tractors. They've literally been banned from doing so. It's basically creating a monopoly for all of the John Deere dealers where they actually hold ultimate control and power over all of the repairs. Farmers would actually have to spend thousands of dollars to hire a big rig or something huge to haul equipment that weighs thousands of pounds, waste weeks and days and even maybe months trying to get this out there repaired at a dealer. To put it in perspective, some of this equipment or tractors weigh upwards of thousands of pounds, kind of like the John Deere 9760 combine harvester, which weighs a whopping 31,000 pounds by itself. With all of this going on, farmers become so frustrated, they actually filed a lawsuit against John Deere that's called the right to repair.
You have a machine down in a shop because of a minor issue that you can't have someone work on. You know, it causes a lot of problems.
The right to repair is where farmers are fighting for the diagnostic tools so they can make the repairs and resets by themselves without having to rely on a dealer. John Deere is so desperate to keep the farmers and third-party companies from working on this equipment that they actually installed a software lock that keeps anyone other than an authorized John Deere dealer from being able to access that equipment. And because of this software lock, farmers have filed this lawsuit for right to repair so they can take care of their equipment on their own. The response from John Deere, I think, is even more heartbreaking. Instead of trying to fix things between them and their #1 customer, John Deere actually filed a motion to have the case dismissed. However, in November of 2023, a U.S. district judge denied John Deere the dismissal of their case. This judge found that the farmers' allegations were chock full of truth. Therefore, they're monopolizing the market and putting farmers out. Farmers are angry, and rightfully so. Tractors are the workhorses of agriculture and heavily relied upon by farmers. In today's tech-savvy age, tractors have become a lot bigger and more technologically advanced, which in turn makes them harder to work on. These machines now rely on that technology that farmers desperately need access to, but John Deere, they don't want to give them access. But why? It mainly seems like John Deere just genuinely wants to leave all that revenue in-house. It cuts out farmers and all of those third parties who can make those repairs a heck of a lot faster. And a lot of these third-party companies may be a lot closer, which cuts down on repair time. And in agriculture, time is money. If a farmer loses an entire day or days, weeks, even months, that could be thousands of dollars worth of revenue that they've lost, or they could miss harvesting time completely and every crop that they have could be just rendered useless. It's really sad that farmers are having to fight so hard for the software on equipment that they actually already own. Farmers are so angry, they're actually hacking their own tractors.
There's pirated software out there from Eastern Europe
that guys are utilizing to try to get around this, to be able to work on their tractors themselves.
I believe the software I got's a hacked version of John Deere's system.
That's right, farmers are hacking into the software systems of their tractors just so they can repair them and get back to work. Basically, farmers are getting their hands on firmware that was developed in Eastern Europe. The farmers are even having to go to such great lengths to get this firmware, they're having to buy it on the black market. I mean, think about it. You're so desperate as a farmer to get your crops and make your money and get there before all of your harvest is, completely gone, that you're going to the black market to buy some software overseas just so you can do your own job. It's gotten so bad that back in October of 2020, John Deere actually made farmers sign a new licensing agreement anytime that they buy more equipment. This new agreement states that they are prohibited from making any sort of repairs or modifications to any of the tractors or equipment. It also prevents farmers from being able to sue John Deere for lost profits, lost crops, or even loss of equipment due to that software failure. It seems like John Deere adding that agreement into the back shows that they do know that there's a problem. They just don't want to be responsible for it.
In January of 2023, it seemed like the farmers' fight against John Deere was finally coming to an end.
For years, John Deere manufacturers told farmers they didn't have the right to make their own repairs on their purchases.
Tahlil Moeddin shares how a new agreement is making a change and why many farmers are celebrating.
This is an issue that's been a priority for us for several years.
It's the reason farmers across the country are celebrating an agreement between the manufacturing company and the American Farm Bureau Federation, giving the go-ahead to make their own repairs.
But recent news has come out as of April 2024, showing that the farmers' fight against John Deere is far from over. This article from Progressive Farmer says that data delay slows right to repair case. And you see right here, John Deere right to repair case could face extended delay on data dispute. And what it says here on the fine print is that Deere is attempting to run the clock out on plaintiffs and deny their experts the time needed to discover and analyze critical structured data concerning Deere and authorize dealer pricing for parts and repair services that are critically important to establishing class-wide damages and antitrust liability. And down here at the bottom it says Deere's failed to produce much of the structured data requested and required by plaintiffs and their experts.
Looks like it's a short-term deal to maybe calm the talk that's out in the countryside about not being able to pick or fix our own equipment.
This delay in John Deere just dragging out the legal process just shows you how little they care about the farmers who actually buy their equipment, and that they're just willing to drag this thing out for as long as possible, milking every dollar they can get from John Deere customers until they just have to finally give in. When that will be, we don't even know. This article is only a few months old, and it looks like John Deere is still trying to fight these farmers.
Farmers are a huge part of the food chain here in America. For instance, corn is the largest United States crops as far as production goes, and it's grown somewhere in what we like to call the Corn Belt. Corn annually brings in roughly $75 billion in revenue. Why one of America's largest and longest standing manufacturers wants to anger their #1 client seems a little corny to me. Soybean and wheat are also large production harvests here in America, with soybean bringing in roughly $51 billion in revenue, while wheat brings in about $12 billion in revenue. These crops are massive money makers for the US economy. It seems from a business perspective, it would be smarter to work hand in hand with the farmers instead of against them. If you look at it, you would make more money in the long run by making your customers happy because they would want to come back to you and buy more farm equipment from you. So I'm not sure what John Deere thinks that they're going to gain by angering one of their biggest customer groups. It just doesn't seem like good business sense to me. It seems like desperate times have caused farmers to take drastic measures, and rightfully so. Angry farmers and businesses are not the only issues that John Deere seems to be facing right now.
You know the slogan, nothing runs like a deer? Well, now John Deere's running all the way to Mexico, slashing more than 600 jobs in Illinois and Iowa in the process. This is just recently. The company citing rising manufacturing costs as one of the reasons for the move.
They recently laid off 600 plus employees, with more expected to be let go. This oddly comes at the same time that John Deere announced their move of some of their production to Mexico, even though John Deere is known for being a great American company. This move comes as a shock to many who have been long-standing and lifelong John Deere customers. John Deere's iconic leaping deer has been around for 187 years. This John Deere logo was first put into use back in 1837. This logo right here is actually America's longest standing logo ever in history. With such a rich legacy, it's pretty sad to see that John Deere's actually laid off 2,000 plus employees since September 2023 all the way up until now, July 2024, leaving employees and communities that these John Deere plants are actually home-based in a state of disarray and disbelief.
There's going to be a significant impact to these small towns here around Iowa that have manufacturing facilities for John Deere here. Already this year they've laid almost off 1,000 workers. More cuts are expected at the end of July. And, it's going to be devastating for a lot of these small communities for sure.
Small town America, where Dagan and I both come from as well, when you have a big employer like Deere and they start to peel off jobs, to your point, it destroys communities.
John Deere is stating that their second quarter of 2024, they're actually down 15%, and they're expected to take a bigger loss the remainder of the year. This would lead one to believe that the layoffs are due to decline in revenue, though if you look up records, it shows that John Deere made a whopping $10.116 billion in profit just last year in 2023. It would seem with numbers like that the business is doing just fine, or at least so one would think. So why? Why are they really moving their manufacturing to Mexico? In a statement, John Deere said, "We can confirm Deere leadership recently communicated that rising operational costs and declining market demand requires enterprise-wide changes in how work gets done to achieve our goals and best position the company for the future." They're essentially blaming manufacturing costs here in the United States for that move into another country, into Mexico. Some feel like this move is purely profit-based to keep lining the pockets of the uppers in the company so they don't have to take a pay cut. No matter the real reasons, it doesn't seem like a good business plan or strategy to take a company that's based off such a rich American heritage and to move it to another country, knowing that a lot of people here in America buy their product because they know it is an American-based company and has been for all of these years. So I'd like to know, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think John Deere stands to gain? What do you think about why they're letting people go, why they're moving to Mexico, and just genuinely what you think about this right to repair and what John Deere really should be doing to help out all of these farmers? And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.